I was younger, we would play this game called tsoro. It is suspected to be one of the oldest games on the continent and in the world, with some evidence suggesting variations existed between 2,000 to 8,000 years ago. Often dug up into the ground or carved into wood, it is difficult to know precisely just how old tsoro is. Many people also know the game as mankala or mansala, and in Africa it is also known as ayo ayo, bao, oware, awale, oril, wari, and other plentiful names. There are many play variations, and the most common are played on either 2-rank or 4-rank boards, but other board arrangements exist as well. The number of seeds, stones, or marbles used in play and how you capture them will also vary from place to place and style to style. I grew up playing tsoro on 4-rank boards that we would dig up in the ground, and I only saw the wood-carved versions much later in my adult life. We would usually use gravel stones left over from concrete mixing or seeds from whatever tree was fruiting at the time as the currency of play. The aim, of course, was to capture most of the tokens by end of play, and it is such a cunning introduction to resource accumulation and sequestration that speaks to how humans have always taken from each other and the environment. It frustrates me that more often than not, you now find tsoro sets as artifacts or curios that exist in galleries and museums, and if they're in someone's home, they are usually just for deco or introducing an aesthetic that suggests culture and Africanism. I decided to twist this association with art spaces and make a tsoro set that is intended to be hung up as art from the get-go. An art piece that is in conversation with the economic inequities we still feel on the continent, in and out of art spaces, and the grip the global north still has on southern resources. I recently foraged for polystyrene packaging waste and got to work carving out a 4-deck game of tsoro. The first thing I did was cut it down to a square arrangement, sketched out the placement of the wells, and cut them out with a craft knife. I smoothed the insides of the wells using some sandpaper to create a more even finish. As I wanted to create a cracked earth effect, the next thing I did was sketch out some cracks in pencil. Happy with how things were looking, I then painted over the polystyrene with white gesso to prime the surface and get it ready to take on the pigment I would be painting with. Since we're going for the look of dried soil, why not paint it with actual soil? The first step here was to grate and finely grind some red clay with a blender, but you could also use a mortar and pestle or whatever tools you may have on hand. Mix in a little water and you've got yourself some basic paint. I painted on a few coats of this clay, and once that was dry, I could focus on the wells themselves. Not being a very subtle person, I decided to go with white sand and black silt as the two colors for the global north and south respectively. This part was probably the easiest. Paint on some glue, pour in some sand or soil, allow it to dry for a day or so, come back and repeat the process until you have total coverage. Everything got a thin coat of matte varnish to seal in the pigment and protect it from time and the elements. Once the glue soil combo is totally cured and varnished, The last thing to do here is complete the inequity metaphor with some nyimo seeds. Nyimo are a legume from and enjoyed all over Africa and happen to be one of my favorite boiled salty snacks in and out of season. I heat treated the dry seeds by baking them at about 80 degrees to kill off any bugs that may be taking up residence within them. I then use some 5-minute epoxy to glue them down onto the board, and with that, the piece is complete. A game stuck in time where one side clearly isn't having the best of times.